Alright guys, what's going on? Grab a pen and jot this down. Today we're going to talk about on-chain versus off-chain activity, what's the difference, why it matters, and why this is the future that's happening today. So first up, what's on-chain? Well, 20 to 30 years ago, I think in 1991, 1992, the internet was invented. It created what is now known as being online. It was very difficult, it was very expensive, and it eventually became very accessible to everybody. But at a certain point in time, only 10 or 12 computers in the world, when ARPANET had designed the first intranet, could access the internet as we know it today. And the primary reason was for military purposes. But over 20 to 30 years, we've onboarded 4 to 5 billion people onto the internet. Now everybody's online. It only requires a phone. It only requires access to the internet or maybe a computer. And now it's just synonymous with being connected. Like you have to be online. Like that's the notation when you're on like a messenger app, whether you're on email, it doesn't matter, you're online. On-chain is the future of the next generation of data containerization. So what we mean is, how do I transfer data on blockchains, and then how do I transfer them from network to network? So there was a moment in time where the internet was only accessible in domestic nations. So if you were on the internet, you really were limited by the computers of the country you were living in. And that's why domains have .com, .ca, .nz. These represent abbreviations of countries. And there was a moment in the late 90s, early 2000s, you'll remember like a WorldCom, MCI, Telecom, all these major companies, they laid down the fiber optic cables and the broadband across the ocean, connecting country to country. So you can look this up on global maps. You can see how we have laid out these large cables that are running hundreds, thousands of miles across the oceans, across the floor of the oceans. They're very hard to reach. They obviously spent billions of dollars installing these cables. And the reason is they had to literally connect these countries by cable, because it's faster to do it via fixed broadband versus wireless. And we haven't gotten to the point where we are today, where satellite communication like Starlink and wireless communication is pretty fast. You know, at this point you probably get a couple hundred megabytes, maybe a gigabyte or two via wireless, but fixed broadband hardwired Ethernet cables are really fast. You can transfer gigabytes and gigabytes. That's how most media networks, how YouTube channels upload like high quality, high definition. If you want to get the best internet streaming services, you want to use hard cable versus wireless, because it just streams faster. There's no latency, no lag. So back to on-chain. We haven't figured this out yet, and this is the next stage of the evolution of the internet. But what's going to happen is you're going to create one profile, you're going to create one identity, you're going to create one unique address, and then you're going to be able to shift this information across networks. If you think about how you upload an attachment to Google, you upload a photo to Facebook or Instagram, you send messages on WhatsApp, it's actually very difficult to share information or actually even forward information. When WhatsApp, Instagram, and other messaging apps create forward features like, hey, I want to share this, like TikTok does really well, that's a pretty novel idea. TikTok had done this well, so you could share their videos in their video format on other platforms. And Instagram didn't do this, YouTube still doesn't do this. A lot of social media platforms that do video don't do this. So if you think about the complications with just video, it's pretty enormous. But to actually send it via text, meaning in the format of the native app, with the emojis, with the messaging format and its current like native features, like WhatsApp messages look different from Facebook Messenger messages. They look different from my Android or Apple messages. And actually, when you said it, it's not native to native. It's actually difficult to transcribe or translate from one platform to the next. The best example actually is Apple and Google. When you text across platforms, they show different green versus blue bubble. So when you have on-chain, what you start doing is you start having a similar base format of information. It's fundamental. It will either, if it sends information from point A to point B, in between, it'll shift it and make the information native to the platform. Why? Because it can communicate with, hey, this is the type of file you're sending. Natively, it looks like this. So if I produce a video like this on TikTok, and I want to send it to somebody on Instagram, it won't look like it's a TikTok video. It'll actually get transformed into an Instagram video. But today you can't do that because the technology is not there, because all the companies that provide the technology are siloing data in their networks. And right now we cannot communicate across networks seamlessly. It takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of investment. And going, what I would consider that to be considered off-chain, we're now beginning to move on-chain. And when you go on-chain, you'll realize that you can start moving information quicker. You can move information in blocks that are important, because you don't have to redesign, reshare, redo. I don't have to create this video 6 times for 6 different platforms. You save a lot of friction points, get rid of them, and just make the entire transaction smooth.